Welcome. Thank you for joining this evening's Active Monash webinar. It's brought to you by This Girl Can Victoria. This Girl Can Victoria aims to empower women to focus on how getting active feels instead of worrying about what people think. So my name's Carol and I'm the Program Coordinator at Active Monash, and I'll be hosting the webinar this evening. Before we start, in the spirit of reconciliation, the City of Monash acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to the elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So just before we get started, because I know you're all waiting to hear from Kerryn, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping rules. Just so that everyone can hear easily, if you could keep yourself on mute, that would be fantastic. It's up to you whether you want to have your video on or off. If you want to sit back and, you know, if you're in your jammies or you're in the bath or whatever, feel free to keep your video off. But I'm sure Kerryn would like to see a few faces. It's up to you. What we'll do is Kerryn, I'll pass on to Kerryn shortly and she will present. If you want to have a question, if you could put it in the chat, and then at the end of the session we'll have time to go through the questions. So rather than Kerryn be interrupted throughout her session, if you could put it in the chat, and then what we'll do is we'll call out your name and you can take you off mute so you can speak to Kerryn at the end. I just want to introduce Kerryn. So I have had the pleasure of hearing Kerryn talk a few years ago. She is a very impressive person and she has an amazing story to share. She's got an impressive list of accomplishments and has had huge success in sport, especially in the area of triathlon. I was impressed so much by Kerryn's attitude and her passion that I asked her to work for us at Active Monash, and she's one of our group exercise instructors, and she takes a cycle and core class for us, so we're really lucky to have her. Kerryn's attitude and journey reflect the values of both This Girl Can and Active Monash, and I really hope you enjoy the session tonight, and I'm going to pass on to Kerryn.
Thanks, Carol. Great to be here and great to be part of the This Girl Can campaign. First time I've presented via Zoom, so this is a bit exciting. Also want to say hi to everyone out there who's logged on. I know there's quite a few people that I know, so hello to all of you. Some of you know this story, so I hope it doesn't bore you, but the story doesn't change, so I've got to tell it again. And to those who I don't know, great to meet you. So as Carol said, I'm Kerryn. I work at Monash, along with a lot of other things, and yeah, I'm here tonight to share my story with you. So I'm just going to set up, I've got some slides I want to show you, so I'll just get those up and running. So just bear with me for 3 seconds, because that'll give you a bit more of an idea of a few things as we go along. Okay, I'm hoping everyone can see that now. Okay, so my story that I want to share is really particularly focusing on the last 7.5 years of my life, and that was the moment I became an amputee and came very, very close to losing my life. It's a story that takes me through a long recovery, rehabilitation, and really rebuilding my life from scratch, all the way through to today, where I can honestly say that I'm happy, healthy, fit, and living a really fulfilling life. COVID aside, of course, I don't want to talk about that right now, but outside of COVID, that's how I am. That's obviously having a bit of an impact. So my job, as Carol said, I do work for Monash, but I run my own personal training business outside of that called 9 Lives Training, which is quite apt considering some of the life experiences I've had. I present as well on the side. I also am part of a charity, founding director of a charity called Start Foundation. And what we do is we empower amputees in life through sport. And outside of that, in my spare time, I do triathlons. So that involves swimming, riding and running. So a lot of time spent training and racing as a para-triathlete these days. So that's really what I want to talk about. And at the end, I'll talk about some strategies as to how I've got from that starting point 7.5 years ago through to today, which hopefully there's some good takeaway messages for you. Before I go down that path, I just want to take you back one step further and talk to you a little bit about what my life was like before I became an amputee. So this is prior to January 2013. I worked full-time as a patient transport officer. So I worked for a private ambulance company, and my role was to transport low acuity patients around Melbourne and Victoria to varying appointments and hospitals, etc., etc. Look, the job was okay, but my real passion was actually outside of the workplace, and that was in sport, and particularly that sport of triathlon, which, as I said, involves swimming, riding and running. So that took up most of my spare time, most of my weekends where I was either training for or participating in a triathlon or any one of those individual sports, so fun runs, recreational rides and some open water swims. And probably the highlight of my sporting career up to then was in 2012, and that's what this photo is about. I completed Melbourne Ironman. I know some of you here tonight know what an Ironman is, but for those who don't, Ironman is like the longest form of triathlon. So it's a 3.8 kilometre swim, 180 kilometre bike ride and a 42 kilometre run. Just a little marathon tacked onto the end. And I did that in a time of 13 hours. That was like a 12-month build-up, and I ended up completing it in a time of just on 13 hours. So a pretty proud moment back then. So I was fit, I was healthy, and life was pretty good. That life as I knew it, though, changed in January 2013. I was over in Adelaide on a cycling holiday and had an accident on my bike. Relatively minor accident. I got some cuts and bruises, but lo and behold, 36 hours post that accident, I found myself in the Royal Adelaide Hospital and I was fighting for my life. I'd picked up a bacteria from off the road where I'd fallen through a wound in my elbow. And the bacteria is called necrotizing fasciitis, which is also known as flesh-eating disease. Now, necrotizing fasciitis, it's rare, it's aggressive, it's quite often fatal if not treated early. When I arrived at Royal Adelaide, the bacteria was advanced and I wasn't expected to survive. And really, pardon me, the only option was surgery. It was quite radical surgery to remove my entire arm and shoulder. It's what's called a forequarter arm amputation. My body was so weak at that point in time that I actually went into multiple organ failure and I was put onto life support. And I was given at that point less than 5% chance of survival. Obviously, I did survive. There's a few reasons why I did, but one of the key ones was my fitness. Obviously, I was very fit, as I'd said before. The medical team said in no uncertain terms there's no way I could have survived if I was not as fit as I was. So I guess if you take nothing away from this presentation tonight, just a recognition that your fitness can actually pay you back in spades when you really need it, outside of doing sport or just trying to look buff and fit. It actually can pay you back in spades when you're really unwell. So I ended up spending a week on life support before I was finally stable enough to be woken up. And I just wanted you to have a think about what this would be like. So I've been out of it for a week. I get woken up. I have no idea where I am. I have no idea what's happened to me and no idea how long I've been there. And I've got this big medical team around me saying, Kerryn, wow, it's an absolute miracle that you're alive. And by the way, you no longer have an arm or shoulder. It's like, this information is pretty much, it's impossible to comprehend. You just can't take it in. But for me, there was one thing that helped me through this period, and that was an incredible amount of drugs. I was on every painkiller and every drug I think known to mankind, so I couldn't remember anything that I was being told about this life-changing information. So 5 minutes after they were trying to tell me, I'd forgotten, and I'd have to ask again, what was I doing there? What had happened to me? It was just crazy. It was probably about 2 weeks after that that the reality of what had happened to me really started to kick in. And I started thinking about, what was my life going to be like? What was my future? It was hard to picture yourself as an amputee and what you could do with your life. Having a permanent disability, it's not something you ever think is going to happen to you. And there's no doubt there was a massive grieving process and a sense of loss about the life I was never going to get back again. But on the flip side of that, I started thinking about, and you guys will probably would think of this as well, is that, you know, every now and then you see amputees going about their business in the community, just doing stuff like everyone else. You know, they're working, they're driving, they're doing their shopping, they've got kids, they're just doing stuff like everyone else does in their everyday life. And the other thing that helped me a lot was, being the sports lover I am, I started thinking about the Paralympics, and particularly, you know, seeing so many people with different disabilities achieving sporting feats at the highest level. And it made me think, you know what, if they can do that, then why can't I? You know, so I decided at that moment that I would accept myself as an amputee and that it would be okay. Sure, there was going to be a million challenges, learning how to do stuff all over again, but I decided I was up for that challenge, and let's just see what opportunities come my way in this new life as an amputee. So after 3 weeks in intensive care, I ended up on a ward, and I started setting myself some mini goals. And the first one of those was just to sit up in my bed, and then to stand, and then to take one step. Now, all of these were absolutely exhausting. But you know what, every time I added another step on, it gave me the confidence to add one more again. And, you know, wasn't long, you know, within a week I was out the door, and then I was at the end of the ward. So it was just like one small step after another after another. All together, I spent 3 months at Royal Adelaide Hospital. I had 11 surgeries before I was finally well enough to get back to my home base, which is Melbourne, and then started a long period of rehab. So I want to share some stories with you about rehab and starting to rebuild my life again. I hope you're all on board and haven't gone to sleep, because I can't see any of you. So I'm just going to hope that you're still there. Okay, so back home in Melbourne, and I became an outpatient at Caulfield Rehab. I've got a feeling there might be some Caulfield Rehab people on board this presentation, so hello. So they were fantastic there. The first thing they did was they sat down with me and they said, okay, Kerryn, what do you want to learn to do first? What are your goals? You know, what are your first things you want to relearn to do? So I came up with 3. The first one was just daily living. Daily living. I needed to learn how to dress, how to shower, how to eat, you know, how to clean my teeth, all this stuff that we just take for granted every day. I had to relearn how to do one-handed. So I worked with an occupational therapist at Caulfield, and we just worked our way through all these little things one at a time, and learned how, you know, what different modifications I could use to help me. So just an example, you know, like how do you do up a zip on a hoodie? You know, how do you get that zip together? How do you peel a banana? How do you break an egg? How do you peel a banana? How do you open a jar? You know, you don't have that second anchor to hold those things down. So we worked our way through a lot of stuff like that, a lot of trial and error. And one thing I did have a few errors in was learning how to pick up dog poo one-handed. I made a couple of errors. I never made those errors again. I never have again. Yeah, so it was just all this crazy stuff that, you know, as I said, you don't even give a second thought to. So I ended up coming home with a whole lot of modifications, particularly in the kitchen, to help me with preparing food and eating and things like that. And they've been really beneficial to me, and I still use them to this day. So then the second goal that I had in rehab was I wanted to drive. I wanted to get back behind the wheel. Not being able to drive for many, many months, I felt like I had no independence. So I needed people every day to drive me. I had a lot of appointments at that time, and, you know, I just wanted to be able to go to and fro whenever I wanted. So there was a lot of organising. So I had a manual car, which obviously I had to ditch and get an automatic. But actually the shock coming to getting back behind the wheel was that I actually had to reset my licence again, which after 30 years of driving was a bit rude, I thought. Anyway, so I did. I reset my licence at rehab, and I passed, fortunately. The only thing, I don't know how I did this, but because I can hardly turn my neck, still struggle, but I had to prove that I could look right behind me and still hang onto the wheel and keep in a straight line. So I don't know how I did it, but I managed to get through that, and I got my licence. And then it was a matter of getting a new car, an auto, and getting a few modifications put on it. So I ended up with the spinner knob on the steering wheel, which is a bit like driving a dodgem car, and then just an indicator lever, which is on my, which goes across to the left-hand side, so I can literally hang onto my spinner knob, and I can indicate at the same time. So independence back, I was wrapped. So it would made a big difference to me and my confidence to be able to do that again. And the third goal, I'll talk about that now. The third goal I had in rehab was that I wanted to get my fitness back. I was really keen to get fit again and get back to the sports that I loved doing, or at least attempt to. So that was relearning to swim, relearning to ride a bike, and relearning to run again. So I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about that now. So this time I was working with the physio at rehab. Her name was Lizzie, nice young lady. Lizzie knew what I was trying to achieve, and so the first time I met her, she said to me, she said, "Kerryn, okay, as of today, you are back in training." I'll tell you what, my eyes lit up. Training, wow, that's what I do, you know, that's me, that's the old me. It's like, it was seriously the best thing she could have said to me. Got me very excited. So that day we went out onto the lawn at rehab, and I attempted my first 30-second jog, and it was a bit screwy. I had, my balance was really ordinary, had no centre of gravity, so I was a bit all over the shop, and I couldn't really coordinate my arm very well with my leg, so it was all a bit all over the shop with my arms. But, you know, I did this 30-second jog somehow, and I finished with the biggest cheesy grin on my face, because as of that moment, I was back in training, and that felt fantastic. From that moment, Lizzie set me up with an 8-week walk-run program. So every week I'd increase the running time and decrease the walking time. I did that a few times a week. And after 8 weeks, I did my first 30-minute run non-stop. But as I said earlier in the presentation, I like to do events, so I really wanted to do a fun run. So in October 2013, so this is just 9 months post my amputation, I entered and ran a 10-kilometre fun run. I'm sure you're all going, yoo-hoo, that's awesome. But I'll tell you what, it was the hardest, slowest, most painful, just hurt like hell run I reckon I've ever done. Definitely a personal worst time. But you know what, I ran every step of the way in that run, and it was just the most amazing feeling. And the best part about it was I invited my family and all my friends down to either run with me or just support from the sidelines. I had over 70 people turn up, and they were there, and it was just fantastic fun, and it was like a massive milestone for me. And we really, really celebrated it. And I knew at that point in time, if I can do this 10K run, I can achieve whatever I want to in my life. But then I was brought down to earth with a thud when I got in the pool. So let's just move on to the swimming. So the next thing I wanted to do, yes, was learn to swim. So I'm still at rehab here, and still working with Lizzie, the physio, and they have a pool at rehab. So I wanted to relearn how to do freestyle. I don't know how many swimmers are out there. I know there's quite a few triathletes that are logged in tonight. So for those that swim, or even if those that don't, swimming is very rhythmic. So you take so many strokes, have a breath, so many strokes, have a breath. So I used to be a bilateral breather. So I'd take 3 strokes, breathe to one side, 3 strokes, breathe the other side. But I only have one arm now, so that doesn't make a lot of sense to me anymore. So I really didn't know how I should swim. And interestingly enough, Lizzie wasn't 100% sure either, but what she suggested was we get in the pool, and I put my head down, I start kicking, take a stroke, and just see what happens naturally. So I thought that's a really good idea. So that's what I did. I jump in the pool, I put my head down, I start kicking, I take a stroke. Yep, I'm holding on my breath. Still holding my breath. Still holding my breath until I can't hold my breath any longer, and I come up gasping for air. Because you know what? I was waiting for my right arm to take a stroke so I could actually take a breath. It was the most bizarre feeling. Because, you know, despite the fact it's quite obvious I don't have an arm, I still felt like I did. And even today, I still feel like I have an arm. So it was just crazy. So we had to work out, obviously, a whole new way. And eventually we did. We worked out that I could take 2 strokes, breathe to the right, 2 strokes, breathe to the right. And that's what I did. And I built that up from there. And look, after I got out of rehab, I picked up a couple of swim coaches who helped me along the way. And you know, my swimming improved to the point, you know, yes, I can probably swim equally as far as what I used to before I became an amputee. Definitely a lot slower. Cannot get that speed back. But contrary to popular belief, I do not go around in circles. It seems to be a common form of thing I hear from a lot of people. Oh, you swim in circles? No, I actually swim straighter than some of my friends that I swim with, believe it or not. And I know there's some people here that do swim and they've seen me swim and would probably back up my story here. So swimming, tick. But then I had to get back on a bike. That was my next goal. And that had some different challenges as well, which I'll talk about now. So getting back on a bike, first challenge was just balance. Okay, so as I said earlier, my centre of gravity wasn't good. I was still kind of, you know, leaning to one side. I was really weak. So I had a lot of muscle imbalances. So I needed to get strong. I needed to build my fitness a lot more. So I started doing clinical Pilates with the physio. And I went back to the gym and started building up some just general body strength, especially legs and core, until I felt ready. The other challenge on the bike was just the bike itself. So I couldn't just jump on my roadie and go flying off down the road. I needed a bike that had some modifications done to it. So I needed all my brakes and gears set up on the left-hand side. So I found a bike mechanic that could do that. I set up my brakes so I could squeeze my brakes and the front and back brake would brake at the same time. And he also set me up with these very, very cool electronic gears, which is very easy to change, which all of a sudden seemed like an absolute necessity to me. And because they're quite expensive. I would have loved to have had them for years and years before that because they're so easy to use, but this seemed like a good excuse to get them. So the bike was ready to go. But my biggest challenge with the bike was just fear. Fear. I was really scared to get back on that bike. The last time I'd been on a bike, it had not ended well. So that was always in the back of my mind. But you know what, I also remembered how much I loved riding. So I thought, you know what, I've just got to have a go. Just have a go. If I still love it, I'll continue. If I don't love it anymore or I just find it too hard, then well, at least I gave it a crack and it didn't work out. So I started off just in my side street at home, jumped on the bike. I took a few pedal strokes and felt okay. It was a bit wobbly, but felt okay. I then moved to the velodrome and spent a lot of time going around. I hate to think how many kilometres I've done on the velodrome. Just building up my my fitness, my bike skills, my confidence, and it just took time. It was a lot of just time, just rolling around, just making me feel safe, I suppose. So yes, I worked very hard on that bike to get back to where I wanted to be, and I guess I can still say that I could ride just as far as what I could prior to my amputation. I could probably ride equally as fast. But what hasn't left me is fear. Even now I get on that bike and I'm like, oh, what are you doing, Kerryn? Why are you doing this? Like, are you crazy? It's just like, I must be stupid. But then I start get going and I'm like, oh, that's why I do it, because I just actually I really love riding. So while I still love it, I'll still continue to do it. So I've relearned how to do these 3 sports, and then I thought, oh, it's time to put them together and let's see if we can do a triathlon again. So this is almost 2 years post accident now. So we're looking at so the accident was January 2013. So this is the end of 2014. I was ready to go back and do my first triathlon. So I entered a local race down at Elwood. It's just a sprint distance, so 500 metre swim, 20k bike ride, 5k run. Beautiful conditions, thank goodness. And I went down there and it was just, I was I was blown away by the support. Being back in amongst my community of people was just brilliant, and I just felt at home. So I raced this triathlon and I got through it okay, no incidents, got through the swim, got through the bike, got through the run. And interestingly enough, it was quite funny in my mind, was I just raced as an age grouper, and I didn't even come last in my age group, which I thought was quite amusing. And I actually did pretty well, well enough for Triathlon Australia to take a bit of notice. And they actually invited me from there to go and compete in a para-triathlon. So triathlon for people with disabilities only. So that was a couple of months later. So that was up in Sydney. So I headed up there and went to this para-triathlon. And I tell you what, that really, really did blow me away. I was so inspired being amongst these people who all had disabilities of some description, not just amputees. There was people in wheelchairs, there was vision impaired, there was people with neurological issues, you name it, they were there, and they were all racing, and they're varying modified equipment. It was incredible to be a part of. So I raced there and actually did okay there as well. Well enough there to then be invited to join the Australian elite paratriathlon team. So the next 6 months were a bit of a whirlwind, really, of training hard and racing, and all of a sudden I found myself on the start line of the Paratriathlon World Championships. I'm now in Chicago. So this is 2.5 years post-amputation. I'm in the water waiting for the start gun to go off, just pinching myself. I'm looking up at my family on the sidelines, giggling because I can't actually believe that I'm there. Everyone else around me very serious. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? So I raced in the World Championships, and I did okay there too. In fact, I did quite well. I actually came second in the world. So silver medal against the best paratriathletes in the world, which just still blows my mind today, even thinking about it, to be honest. One of the best days of my life. What an opportunity that came from adversity. One, I got to represent my country. Two, I'm in the green and gold. Three, I end up on a podium, second in the world. Just an experience that I never ever thought that would happen to me, and to get that opportunity was just incredible. Very, very lucky. So I went on competing for Australia over the next few years, and went to 3 World Championships. The next year I went to Rotterdam, came away with a third, and then in 2018 I went to Worlds on the Gold Coast, and I picked up a fourth up there. But then I started thinking, well, what's the next challenge? And I started thinking, well, you know, maybe I could do another Ironman. So I set my sights on training for an Ironman. And just as a reminder for those that don't know what that is again, that's a 3.8 kilometre swim, a 180 kilometre bike ride, and a 42 kilometre run. So I trained my backside off basically for 6 months preparing, and in December 2018, I went over to Western Australia and I competed in Ironman Western Australia down in Busselton, the town of Busselton, beautiful place. And guess what? I finished Ironman Western Australia, and that was in a time of 13 hours and 49 minutes, which was only 49 minutes slower than my previous one, which I did with 2 arms. Seriously chuffed about getting through this event. So, you know, I swam in that water, shark-infested waters, I might say, 3.8 kilometres. I then got on my bike and cycled with one arm for 180 kilometres, which took me over 6 hours. And then I just did a cheeky little 42k marathon on the end. So, yeah, an amazing experience. And I think I proved to myself, and I think I proved to everyone around me that day, that absolutely anything is possible if you put your mind to it. So that's kind of my sporting career. I'm going to move away from that now and I want to talk to you just before I finish up about some other areas which were really critical in rebuilding myself and my life, particularly going back to work. So I guess I need to go back a couple of years now and go back to being in rehab. Because I pretty much spent 12 months in rehab, where I had lots of thinking time to work out what I wanted to do. I knew I couldn't go back to what I was doing. It just wasn't going to be practical or suitable for me anymore. So I knew whatever I wanted to be, it had to be something I was really passionate about. So I didn't take long to work out what that was. Obviously, health and fitness is my passion. So I decided I'd do a certificate in fitness and become a personal trainer. So at the start of 2014, I enrolled in a Cert 4, and I went to this course. It was a full-time course, 6 months. I hadn't worked for over 12 months at this stage. I didn't know how my brain would cope. To be honest, I'd been on so many drugs. I didn't know whether I remember anything I was being told. I really had no clue how I was going to go, whether I'd even last the first day. I was really nervous. I walked into that room, I thought it was going to be full of young, buff-looking guys, and they'd be wondering, what the hell is this middle-aged woman with a permanent disability coming in here for? Anyway, I went in there and I sat there meekly. I got through the first few sessions okay, and my confidence started to grow as I started to feel quite at home as I started to learn stuff. I started to gain respect from the people that were in the room because I realised that I could actually do things. And I was very, very open to working with everyone. I was very, very open to talking about my challenges of learning how to do different exercises. And eventually everyone became quite engaged in what I was doing throughout the course. By the end of the course, I came out top of the class, and the instructor, one of the instructors in that course, Tammy, who's in this photo, she runs her own personal training studio. She actually employed me as a subcontractor to come and work for her. So I walked out of that door of that course, I walked into her PT studio and started working. So very fortunate to have her alongside me, and she was a great mentor to me. While I was doing that, I set up my own PT business as well. So I attracted all my own clients outside of that and got myself up and running with a great client base near my house. Along the way, as a personal trainer, I picked up a few other qualifications, which were all pretty nerve-wracking to go through, becoming a spin instructor, boxing instructor, TRX instructor. All went through the same thing when I walked into those courses, very nerve-wracking, and having to sort of let everyone work out that I could actually do things. I was very open to learning, and I was going to give it a red-hot go. So that's my business and where it's at now. And of course, part of that is subcontracting Monash, which I have been enjoying doing until we got closed down. Working with Carol and a few of the other guys there has been good fun teaching spinning there. So that's my work life as it is at the moment. And I love it. I'm very passionate about it. It's really easy to put all my energy into it because it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding for me. I love seeing my clients achieve their goals. So another part of rebuilding my life, and this is probably the last little thing I want to talk about before I summarise. When I came out of hospital, I had this burning desire to give something back. Oh gosh, so many people gave so much to me when I was in hospital, went out of their way to look after me, from the medical team to my family, to my friends, to everyone in my support network basically was there for me in varying ways. I wanted to give something back. So I brainstormed some ideas with my sister-in-law, who I think's here tonight, Michelle, if you're there, hello, about what we could do. And we came up with this idea that we could support amputees in some way. So we created a charity called Start Foundation. And what we do is we empower amputees in life through sport. Little did we know when we came up with this idea how hard it is to set up a not-for-profit registered charity. I think if we knew what we were getting ourselves in for, we probably never would have started. But we found some people that were certainly a lot smarter in those areas than we were, or at least I was anyway. And we gathered all our networks in as best we could, and they helped us set up this charity. So what we do is we provide financial grants to amputees, and so they can go out and get a new limb, say, for example, a running blade, or some sort of equipment modification, say, similar to what I had done to my bike, or anything really that they need in those areas to enable them to achieve their sporting dreams and participate in sport. We're really looking at grassroots sports to just get people moving, get people active, and so they can reap all the benefits of participating in sport and being in those communities, exactly the same as I reaped those benefits when I got back into triathlon. Along the way, some of those amputee recipients have gone on to great things. We do have one guy who's trying to get to the Paralympics, which is fantastic. It's really not about that, but that's fantastic to see someone who's taken it all the way to that point. So that's my charity, and also been a big part of my life and very rewarding to be part of it. And another thing that's grown from a really adverse situation and an opportunity that came out of a really adverse situation. So that kind of brings me through to today, where, as I said right at the start, I'm happy, healthy, I'm fit, I'm living a really fulfilling life. I've got my great career as a personal trainer, I've got my charity, and I've got my great sport of paratriathlon. I get asked a lot, how the hell did you do it? How the hell have you managed to succeed and do as well as you've done? I'm pretty proud to say I've probably done about as well as anyone could possibly have done in my situation. And I've had a good think about why and how I've been able to do it. And there's many, many, many reasons. I can't give them all tonight, but I want to just give you 5 key strategies that I reckon have really, really helped get me through to today. And they really cross over to anything that's going on in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be my situation exactly. So the first one that was for me was acceptance. The moment I accepted myself as an amputee was a moment that enabled me to start moving forward in my life, start planning my future, start goal setting, and really start opening myself up to whatever opportunities would come away in this new life I was about to enter. So acceptance was really important for me. Then there was attitude. Attitude, critical. You get to choose what your attitude is, of course. So my attitude from the moment I can remember, when early days after I woke up and understood what had happened to me, was, oh God, I was so grateful. I was so incredibly grateful that I was still here and getting this opportunity again at life. I was so lucky to survive, but not everyone gets that opportunity. So I was going to make damn sure I make the most of those opportunities and just see what came my way. So attitude for me was critical as well. My third strategy was goal setting, and I have mentioned this a couple of times. Goal setting was something I always did anyway, which is how I ended up doing my first Ironman. I set that goal, I went and did it. So goal setting was critical right from those first early days in hospital, taking that, sitting up in bed, standing, taking that first step, those mini goals, all the way through to getting through and completing another Ironman. A huge goal, crazy some might say, but you know what, I planned it out, I set that goal in motion, I got the support people around me, and I achieved it. And my fourth one is support networks I'm talking about here. So I'm very lucky and fortunate that I have quite a large support network of people around me. They were there in my darkest hours when I needed people there 24/7 to do absolutely everything for me. Right through the whole journey, they've been there celebrating those milestones with me, there to pick me up when I've had some low times, but also there to be part of the joyous occasions as well. And one thing I've learnt with my support networks is to ask for help. Probably wasn't the best person to ask for help, but now I know I need help. At the end of the day, I'm pretty independent, but I can't do everything by myself. So I've that's not a word, become very good at asking for help when I need it. And I know people want to help. That's natural that people want to help. They don't always know how. So if I can create an opportunity for them to help, that's great. It's a win-win for everyone. And then lastly, my last strategy is passion. Passion, I've used that word a few times. I've surrounded my life with things I'm passionate about, which I've covered off on, my work, my charity, my sport, my people. I'm passionate about it all. I love what I do. That's how I spend my time, doing things that I'm passionate about. So I've got rid of all the stuff I don't like, and I make sure that everything I do is enjoyable and fun and with people I like being with. So passion, critical one for me again. So those 5 strategies, acceptance, attitude, goal setting, support network, and passion, they all gave me self-belief. Self-belief to do all the things I've done. And it's brought me to this mantra, which is really the finish of my presentation. She believed she could, so she did. And that's the same for all of you. If you believe you can do something, you can. I mean, this girl can, this girl did. So you guys can too. I don't care if you're male or female. You all can if you put your mind to it. So thank you for listening. I hope you're all still there and I haven't sent you off to sleep. If you have, good night. Otherwise, I'm going to pass you back to Carol. And Carol, if you can take over from here, I'm very open to any questions. I believe there'll be a few coming through. So thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Thank you, Kerryn. That's amazing. So absolutely amazing story of adversity and how overcoming adversity actually changed your whole life, from a new career, opportunities in sport, and then giving back to the community, which is pretty amazing story, really. There actually is quite a few questions that have come through. We probably won't be able to go through all of them because we've actually had quite a few, but I'll read some out. And if you've got other questions, put them in the chat and we'll see how we go for time, what we can get through. The first question, Kerryn, is what motivation can you give to our daughters and women to keep them motivated during isolation when they can't train? It's got for try. What is your biggest challenge during lockdown?
So motivation, I guess, for me, it gets back to, well, COVID is an interesting one. Obviously, we're all it's a difficult time for everyone in Melbourne at the minute, and me included. I've really struggled with certain parts of it. My coping mechanism, which might help, and this is I set my goals of what I want to achieve every day. I write them down and I make sure I tick them all off. Exercise being a critical one. So if I have a choice of doing one thing over another, exercise is always at the top of my list, apart from probably work. Actually, it's more important than work, let's face it. So I write my list and I tick it off. And for me, exercise is like cleaning my teeth. It's just part of the daily routine. And I'll tell you what, the longer you stick with that routine, the easier it is to stick with, and the more you miss it if you don't do it. And it can start off very simple. When I went back to running, post-accident, I was just out there for 30 seconds. I wanted to run 30 seconds and we added some time to it. We built up. So start off with something very achievable and build it up over time. Before you know it, it'll become a routine. And sorry, the second question about COVID, I can't remember the question.
What is your biggest challenge during the lockdown?
Oh, for me, it's well, my biggest challenge during lockdown, interestingly enough, is the fact that I took my car in to get it repaired for hail damage during stage 3, right? And it's now in lockdown at the repairers because we went into stage 4, so I can't actually access my car. So I feel like it's all the way back to that time when I was still in rehab where I have no car and I'm trying to get around. So that's been really challenging. Also for me, not being able to train with my friends. So I've been doing all my training by myself. I really miss training with my friends. That's part of my community. So I very much miss my community. Yeah, that's a big hole in my life at the minute.
Yeah, it would be. This question's just come through on the chat. Says, I'm not an amputee, but I am a young woman living with a chronic health condition and wanted to hear your inspirational story. Did you ever experience any times during your journey where you felt like giving up and others were putting you down? And when you did, what did you do to get back up again? What was it that motivated you to keep going? And I'll read the rest of it. What were the challenges to setting up the Start Foundation? How did you overcome these? And what was it that motivated you to want to continue to participate in triathlons again after having your limb amputated? There's some more, but I'll leave you.
That's a lot of questions. You got an hour?
That was. We'll go the first.
Let's go back. Maybe just answer a couple of them. I think the question was when I'm down, or have people put me down? Was that the question?
Did you ever experience any times during your journey where you felt like giving up and others were putting you down? And when you did, what did you do to get back up again? And what motivated you to keep going?
Okay. Well, I can answer the second question very easily. Did I feel like anyone was putting me down? No, I've been fortunate. I've never experienced that. I've been very lucky that I've always had a lot of support and a lot of positivity around me, which helped me enormously. Have I ever felt down? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I still have bad days, all to do with being an amputee. It's a roller coaster. You go along well for a while, and then something comes and slaps you in the face when you realise you can't do something that you wanted to do. It's a constant roller coaster, and I don't think that'll ever change. but I try and surround myself with people that lift me up. I'm very good at reaching out when I need help to my friends, and that's what keeps me going when I'm feeling a bit down. Mind you, my friends do put me back in my place, and they do hang it on me a bit about being an amputee when they feel like it's something funny about it, and that's okay too. That's all part of it, because you get to have a laugh at yourself as well.
Yeah, that's good. This one's a good question. Was it mentally or physically harder to recover from your accident?
That is a good question. Yeah, mentally probably was a bit easier to recover. Although it's still challenging at times mentally. There's still things I miss, but I think mentally it probably, look, as long as I surrounded myself with all those things that I said before, it enables me to cope mentally. Physically, the challenges will continue on. They don't change. You get better at doing things, but there's always something new that comes up. I still have some physical issues, which will be with me for the rest of my life. So that's a constant dealing with things like phantom pain, issues with skin grafts, just things like that, just body imbalances that I have to keep working on with the physio and things like that. So that's not going to go away.
Yeah. Has there been any advice you were given after your accident that has stuck with you?
Advice. I'll pick people, yeah, maybe from some other amputees, specifically some upper limb amputees. A friend of mine who I race against, actually, Sally, I don't know if she's out there tonight, Sally said to me at one stage, you know what, try and learn as much as you can to be independent, but never be afraid to get someone to help you, even if you know how to do it. Because some things just take a hell of a long time. And you're just like, it's like... I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay, so we'll go back to the banana example. I can peel a banana. I make a bit of a mess. I can peel it and I can eat it. But hey, if you're standing beside me and you can peel that banana for me, I'm going to ask you to peel it for me. So that was really good advice. I don't have to fight through this by myself. I can use people around me. If they're convenient and happy to help, then I'm very happy to ask for it.
Yeah, but that's probably like a good question that leads into talking about someone that is with you, or sometimes people don't know whether they should offer help or not offer help. What would be the best way as a person that, say, out with you, or say we were in the supermarket and we didn't know you and we saw you struggling? Is it best to ask, for me, I would ask if you wanted help, but some people don't know, is that the right thing to do, or let someone try and do it themselves? Or, what would your advice give to people around you that, say, don't know you?
Yeah, okay, so I guess it's a very individual thing. Other people with disabilities might disagree with what I would do, but from my own personal point of view, I actually really appreciate if someone comes and asks, as long as they do it in the proper way. Like come up and say, hey, they might come up and say, hey, look, I'm Carol, I noticed you're having trouble getting your beans into the bag. And that is a reality in my life. So, if someone, do you want me to, can I give you a hand? And I can say yes or no. And so sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no, but I always say thanks for offering. I really appreciate it. So I don't mind that. What I don't like is when people come up and are just blatantly rude. They don't introduce themselves. They just come up and say, what happened? That's just blatantly rude. It's like me coming up to you and saying, hey, your glasses look awful. So to me, it's the same. Like you just don't do that. Like introduce yourself. Give me some background as to why you're asking that question before you ask the question.
Have you had any funny stories, like something along those lines?
Well, kids, obviously, no filter. All the time with kids, definitely. Like I've had kids come up, and when I had a t-shirt on, and they come up to the end of my t-shirt, looking inside my t-shirt. I want to see, where's your arm? It's like stuff like that, which is like, it's funny because they're kids, and you can tell mum's like really, oh my God, Johnny, come away. And I've had people, like I've had adults who've been extremely rude though, and just literally come up and say, like straight up into my face, oh, what happened to you? I was like, whoa, hang on. Well, it's actually none of your business. Like, I should say, what happened to your manners, really? It's not the right way you approach anyone.
Yeah, it never ceases. I have a daughter with a disability. It never ceases to be amazing. But it's great educational time as well. A lot of these questions are around motivation. This one says, "Hi, Kerryn. You are an inspiration to me as a fellow neck fash survivor. So where do you draw your inspiration and energy from?"
Hi, Tom. I know who you are. Oh, look, from everyone around me, everyone I've come across, literally, I don't have one particular person, I suppose. I got a lot of inspiration, as I said earlier in my presentation, from racing with the other para-triathletes with all the different disabilities. And at the end of the day, we all just came together. It was all about the sport. It was nothing to do with disability. That was fantastic. But I've met a lot of other people now and spoken to a lot of other people with necrotising fasciitis who, I draw strength from them as well. We're all dealing with the same sort of, well, not all the same issues, but similar stuff. But just everyone around me who's just trying to achieve whatever they're trying to achieve in life. One person, just one little story, when I was in hospital, I was very, very fortunate. I don't know if anyone saw Arne last night. They did a story on Anna Mears. He did his painting. So Anna Mears came to visit me while I was in Royal Adelaide Hospital, because she's an Adelaide girl, and that's where I was. And she was probably 2 or 3 years post having broken her neck. And she was getting ready for London Olympics. And so we had this great chat about that and her comeback. And like for me, it was really helped me with my journey and inspired me to see what she'd been through, and hearing her story was very inspirational to me. But really, I gather it from everyone around me in their varying ways. Everyone's got a story. Yeah,
it's true. What is the one piece of advice you would give to your 15-year-old self?
Stop smoking and be a rat bag. No, I would say to my 15-year-old self, you know what, you're going to go through some terrible things in your life. You're going to get through them, okay? You're going to get through it. It's going to take time sometimes to get through these bad things, but there is an end to them. There is another side. So you just sometimes got to, dig in and get through it, and you'll come out the other side, and there'll be new opportunities when you get out to the other side. And another saying I used to say, even before my accident, was, there's always another curveball coming around the corner at you. So you've got to make the most of the good times when they're coming, when they're there, because guaranteed there's some more crap coming around the corner.
Good advice. I'll make this the final question. And if anyone's got anything else that we haven't covered, if you put it in the chat before we finish off. This one's, what advice would you give for someone living with a chronic health condition that's looking to join the fitness industry?
Oh, well, you just go for it. If you really want to do it and you're passionate about it, there's no reason why you can't. You just find a way, and there's plenty of ways, and there's plenty of people out there to help. If you're open to, learning in a different way and open to sharing your situation, people are very open to then offering help back and offering ideas back. When I was doing the course, there was times we were doing stuff in the gym and learning exercises, and we all had to work together to work out how I could demonstrate it so that then I could teach it. And it was a collaboration. And there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't go for it.
Absolutely. And the thing too, like you probably found, like there's always someone that then relate, like someone else that will have your same chronic condition, that will just be so grateful that there's someone that they can relate to in the industry.
Yeah, and I found it, and now I'm working in the industry. I get a lot of people coming to me who are going through some rehab because they know I've been through that from, ground zero or, fitness level -10, that I can really relate to what they're saying and what their issues are, not just physically, but the mental issues that come with that as well. That's actually worked in my favour in a way. So I can really relate to me because I can relate to them.
Absolutely. This is just one more that's come in. How did you balance the motivators and frustrations of returning to training and work in your favour?
I don't know if I really understand that question. How do I balance the motivators?
How do you balance the motivators and the frustrations? Both the good times and the bad, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't really know how to answer that question. Like I just, like at that time I was probably rebuilding my life at such a fast point. Everything was new, and you know, when I was learning for the course, and I was learning how to run and ride. It was all like this fascinating new world had opened up for me. So, which had a lot of frustrations and setbacks along the way. But I kept on thinking like, oh my God, I can run. I kept on ticking goals, I suppose. So it actually, the positives probably outweighed the negatives when I was getting back into things. Because I was relearning things, I was actually realising I could do this, and I could do that, and I can still do this, and the world was starting to open up for me again. So, yeah, the positives definitely outweighed the negatives.
Fantastic. Well, I think we might wrap it up. So I just want to thank you, Kerryn. That was inspiring as always, and fantastic to listen to you. So I hope everybody enjoyed our webinar with Kerryn. We hope that you got something out of tonight's session. You will receive a feedback email tomorrow, and we hope you've got, you know, if you could take some time to fill that in, that would be fantastic, because that helps us guide our series of webinars. We'd also like to let you know that we've got ongoing This Girl Can webinars. The next one will be on the 1st of September with Marietta Mahoney. So if you like our Monash Aquatic and Recreation Facebook page, that will keep you up to date on all the on what's coming up and the webinars in the future. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you so much, Kerryn. It's fantastic.
Pleasure.
Have a wonderful night, and hopefully we'll see you all again soon.